I'm Adrienne Giffen, and this is Now You're Talking. Parenting in the digital world can feel overwhelming, especially when you're balancing a career, raising teens and preteens, and trying to keep up with it all. Screens are constant, and sometimes real connection feels out of reach. This podcast is your chance to pause and breathe, a space for stories and insights that bring encouragement, perspective, and the reminder that you are not alone. Welcome to today's podcast with Theresa Thomas. Theresa is an author, speaker, and founder of From Toxic to Green Consulting. After experiencing severe chemical sensitivities, Theresa became passionate about helping families create healthier homes. On this show, Theresa shares practical ways to reduce toxins, choose safer products, support kids' well-being, and build environmental awareness at home. If you want simple, doable steps to protect your family's health and trust your instincts, you're in the right place. Let the conversations begin. Theresa, thank you very much for joining me. You are passionate about the environment and the impact that it has on all of us. And I'm so excited that you're here.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be one of your guests. I'm very excited to be here too and love your program.
Oh, well, thank you. And where did your passion for the environment and helping others stem from?
Well, of course, I was always a nature person when I was young, but what happened was in the early 90s, I got severe multiple chemical sensitivities, and I could not go out of my house for a year without a mask on. And during that time, there had been a major environmental problem at one of the hospitals here, and about 800 of the staff went off sick. So I wasn't deemed a crazy menopausal woman at the time. I was able to be attached to that group. I didn't get sick at the hospital, but so we had a lot of nonprofit groups. We had meetings with 200 people showing up, and we had a doctor who was Nova Scotian and actually got chemical sensitivities himself, and then trained in London and in Dallas, Texas. And he would come up every month and help us all. And then
interesting.
Nurses, a lot of the nurses were sick, and the big culprit for them was fragrance products. So as campaigns ran all around Nova Scotia, the No Sense is Good Sense campaign, and sales of scented products just plummeted. This was in the early mid-90s. It was felt that everybody knew somebody who was sick, because we're a small province.
Yes.
Even now, we're just reaching 1 million or so. So the Fragrance, Toiletry, and Cosmetics Foundation representatives came to town, and they asked the Dean of Medicine to gather all the representatives of the groups together. So we all went to this meeting. There were at least a dozen groups represented. And it was all very pleasant, and, and we said, we're mostly concerned about scented products. And the gentleman made the mistake of saying, well, older women, they don't know how to use scented products. And
my goodness,
room with older women.
Yes, know your audience.
Okay, then he said, well, and who funds the posters? So, they were looking to go to whoever was funding the posters and cut the funding. And Rona Cathcart, who was the president of the Nova Scotian Nurses Union at that time, she was a very little woman, kind of like a bulldog. And she put her fists up on the table. She said, no one funds us. We do this all ourselves. We make the photocopies and we put them up everywhere we go. Well, I was at the end of the table where these gentlemen were sitting. And the one came back and he said, we're going to have to advertise to the children. This was around 1998. And of course, even now I get chills. And my daughter is about 9. And there, all the children's programs, they started having the girls spraying their dolls with perfume. And if you went back and studied it, if somebody did a study of it, it's very, very interesting. And I said, and, you know, in order to stop this, I always dreamed I had to have an ad on the Super Bowl or something, or the World Series, right? But I don't have it.
Yes.
And I didn't have that energy back then. But I said, you know what? In about 20 years, we're going to have people that are getting sick. And in around 2017, I was at a film and television event, and there were 320 women who could not go to university because the scents were too strong. And for some people, what happens is it goes into your brain and you can't think. You can't, you've got brain fog. You couldn't write a sentence if somebody told you, even though you're a A+ student, before this happened. So that was kind of my proof. It's anecdotal.
Yes.
It made me think I have got to write a book.
Interesting. And from pain comes passion. Isn't that incredible? Yes. So tell me, but before that, Theresa, what was it like? Is it a cumulative thing that happens to us over time?
Well, yes. And I had a couple of serious exposures. Like you will hear if there's a plant where a vat of formaldehyde spills, they have a process, everybody gets washed on, they're all detoxed and everything. But if you're just getting a little bit at a time, your body builds it up and doesn't see it as a toxin. So there's a book called Low Levels, High Stakes. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Yes. Well, we could put it in the show notes.
Sure. Low Levels, High Stakes. And it talks about using these low levels. So when I look back to it, well, I grew up in a house with natural gas heat and cooking. My dad collected books, so there was lots of book mold. Both of my parents smoked. And of course, back in those days, smoking in the house was normal.
It was accepted, yes.
I smoked, and I had quit by the time I got sick. But, and you go out for your cocktail on the weekends and all these normal life things. And then something happens. So where I worked, we glued down the carpet, and then there was a sewage leak that was fixed. But effluent was under my desk, and my doctor thinks maybe I was really impacted by the methane, breathing methane for a year or two.
Oh, my goodness. So that's... Yes. And we don't know until there's a crisis like what you experienced. Yeah. And so this has motivated you and to write your book From Toxic to Green. Is that correct?
From Toxic to Green.
So tell us a little bit. And you're an environmental health teacher, so educator. So so it tells, and it all started as a result of the adversity that you went through with your health.
Right. And I have to be really careful. Yes, I'm an environmental health educator. I am not a medical professional of any kind.
Yes.
So what I say is just from my own personal experience and concern for everyone. Yeah.
Yes. And so after that person at that event said we have to focus and teach the children, how has that become part of your vision and your mission?
Well, it's really to make sure that parents understand what's going on. And of course, everything magnified with COVID because there was so much fear about germs and viruses and bacteria.
Right.
One of the ads I see, the little children are running up the stairs holding on to the railing that has been sprayed with a toxin. So we can talk about that name, but, or wiping off the counter with the toxin thing that's going to kill the germs, not thinking about, but your hands are touching that and it's going through your own skin. So things that, I'm not sure what your question was, but those are the kinds of things that really alarm me.
Yes.
And then children have such tiny organs. We have bigger organs, so we can process a bit more. But the way our body's supposed to work is overnight, we're supposed to be detoxing everything that came in the day. So now in this world, we have a lot of things that we're exposed to every day. And one of them is actually our laundry products. because in our own little personal space, we're breathing and having go into our skin the synthetic chemicals that are in the laundry.
Yes.
So I advocate fragrance-free laundry and no dryer sheets. And there's a little study that somebody did of 2 dryer vents in 2013. And no industry people are going to do this. And they found, I think it was 7 hazardous air pollutants, 3 of them were carcinogens. So as well,
can you tell
when we go for a walk, we're breathing this stuff. But imagine it right on your body. You're breathing it. And sleeping. You're sleeping in these wonderful scented sheets and pillowcases. And you're just putting more of these synthetic chemicals into your body. And your body doesn't have the time to clean them out. So then the kids wake up cranky, lethargic, or they've got runny noses or earaches or whatever all the time. It isn't normal.
Wow. Which is not normal.
I mean, we didn't do that when we were kids, right?
Yes. Well, so I know it, and it's evolved so slowly.
Yes.
And so we don't really know what's been happening until like you have experienced the crisis. Yeah. So what do you advocate for parents?
Well, number 1 is to change your laundry detergent.
Number 1. And that's such a simple solution, isn't it?
And we are indoctrinated into thinking our bodies smell terrible, so we have to have nice smelling laundry in order to cover up our body smells. Actually, I have this great story in my book about somebody I worked for, and he had hurt his back, and his parents were clinical ecologists way back in the 60s. They had been clinical ecologists for a long time, which is all about the natural balance in the body and in the world. So he knew, maybe not from that, but he knew to lie flat on his back and do nothing for about a week. And so his children were bringing him apples because it was apple season. I could eat an apple lying down quite easily.
Yes.
And then when he came back to work, he said, "Look at this." And he held up his arm, and it had pectin coming out of the pores. Because he had eaten so many apples, the pectin in the apples was coming out of his pores.
And you could see that?
Oh, yeah.
You could see that?
Yeah. Yeah. He said, "Touch this."
Oh, okay.
All like sticky.
Really interesting.
So that was really a graphic example of me, to me, of "You Are What You Ate," which was an LD book back in the 70s. That was the big rage among all the sort of hippie new age people back then, right?
I remember it.
Yeah. So he was the walking example of it. Clean food, clean air, clean water. But the big thing is to change that laundry detergent. And then where we sleep is our sanctuary. That's where we're supposed to do all body repairing overnight. The liver and the kidneys are working hard. And we don't want to give them extra stuff to do. So let's get rid of all the scented stuff in the room. And then also you look at many more things like the mattress, the pillows, the flooring. What are you doing with your electronics, which is your big focus,
That's what I wanted to ask you about, the digital stuff. So what do you say about that?
Turn it off and take it out of the bedroom. So you can't necessarily haul the computer out of the bedroom, but everybody can have an agreement that we're going to take our tablets and our phones and leave them in the kitchen overnight.
And from an environmental perspective, why do you say that?
Well, because even though they're not working, they are emitting radio frequencies. And there's not a lot of proof on this yet, but I believe that they've done some studies, disturb sleep, and they recommend you turn your devices off an hour before you're going to sleep. Nobody wants to do that, but how many people are waking up in the morning and checking their messages or their feed or something? So let's get wind-up alarm clocks, or you can even have a clock radio, the old-fashioned clock radio.
Yes,
Wake up that way. And just leave this other stuff aside until you've done your own breathing and grounding in the morning and looking out the window to see what the weather is like, not looking at your phone to see what the weather system says.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I was just talking to my housekeeper, and she said, somebody had said, don't do the exact same routine every morning. So how many people listening are waking up and grabbing their phone? That's the exact same routine. Probably with the same.
Yes.
Right? And maybe their eyes aren't open yet. So very important. And now I live in a house with other people, so I cannot. But I would, if I was living alone, I would actually shut off the modem and the Wi-Fi connection at night. Like, not just turn it off on my computer, but shut it down.
Shut it down. And how do you feel about these earbuds that I'm wearing?
Well, I'm not using them.
Yeah, I was going to say you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't intend to now. I have a speakerphone that I use, but there's a great chart on Canada.ca, radio frequencies, something or other. I can give you that information too. We can put it below.
That would be great too. We can put that in the show notes as well.
Phone, or your portable phone emits almost as much as a baby monitor, and they are way up there. So people that are on top of this now, they're not having baby monitors in the bedrooms anymore, which is
interesting
because the baby doesn't need a friend. Has to be monitoring. We're all scared of everything, and sometimes I think SIDS is caused by all the chemicals. We get all brand new stuff. The furniture has formaldehyde, the mattresses have formaldehyde, and we got the brand new sheets that we washed in this wonderful detergent for our kid. There have been no studies done on that, and that might be an upsetting thing for people to hear, but SIDS was not normal.
Yeah. A lot of these things have sort of evolved over time, haven't they? A lot of allergies and certainly stuff that, our kids deal with. We didn't raise our children, and there is a difference for sure. And I like what you say about the phones and not having, and going back to the old clock and the clock radio. What I'm hearing more and more is what's old is new again. And maybe we need to take a step back and look at what we used to do because it was working. It may not have been as convenient, but it was working in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And going back in time. So Theresa, knowing what you know now, what would you do the same? And what would you do differently? And maybe take it from your passion, but also as a parent and as a grandparent. What would you do the same and what would you do differently?
Then, you mean? Or the same?
Yeah, like what have you done? What have you done? Because we don't always make mistakes.
No.
Hopefully, as parents, we've done some good things. And if you could take it from your perspective and your passion, what would you do the same and what would you change?
Wow. Well, the same. I mean, I would do, old-fashioned laundry. So, no, we don't have to have wrinkle-free. We don't have to have whatever it is, stain-resistant or living with stains. I know it's not cool. But I just wash my clothes and dry them. I do use the dryer. I don't really like the clothesline because of the pollens and stuff bother me. And if it gets stained, well, I buy a lot of secondhand clothing, as long as it's not scented. So if it gets stained beyond belief, then I can pass it back and not worry about it too much. So not spending a ton of money on all these things and trying not to be too influenced by the advertising world. And this is very tough. Very tough.
Yes. Yeah. Because we're all influenced, and I think more so now than ever before.
Oh, yeah. And there's another woman I refer to in my book. She made a movie addressing all of that for young people and teens and the influences they are presented with. You shouldn't have any body hair, therefore you've got to do waxing, or you've got to do this or that. You should be getting a facelift when you're like 20.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really, I don't know that I'm answering your question very well, but eating clean food as much as possible and just reducing the electronics and reducing stress somehow, that we all have to be keeping up to. We used to call it, keeping up with the Joneses when we were kids. Now we're keeping up with the Kardashians, which is like impossible,
Yes.
that. So, just downloading that expectation and, spending the family time and trying to catch a breath with our feet on the ground.
Yes. And you said that you are thinking and your goal is to write and continue to write books. Can you share a little bit about that, please?
Look, I know somebody said, "Oh, I thought your book covered everything." I said, "Oh no, women have a whole lot of issues around beauty and our sexual organs and our hormones and all of that, which, feeling like they have to get implants here and there and all of these things. And the makeup, there's one study that said the average woman ingests 8 pounds of lipstick in their lifetime. Now, just imagine.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's a toxin.
It is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you want to get clean lipstick, don't get it full of too much or whatever it's going to stick on forever. Nails, I just don't do any of this stuff. I think I have a little bit of lipstick on when I go on camera, but normally I'm just my old self with nothing on, so finding the products that are environmentally safe and conscious of that and self-nurturing, just saying it's okay. I mean, I have to work on this because look at all the publicity around. I have wrinkles. What am I going to do? But I'm not getting a facelift, sorry. And I'm not getting That's the way it is. So this is who I am.
Yes. And that is difficult in this digital era, isn't it? Because, are being influenced, like you said, from a Kardashian level rather than the Joneses. That's such a great
saying, "Oh, I've got so many wrinkles." And I'm thinking, what do you mean?
Yes, yeah. I know we have such a different perspective from our vantage point.
And some of those wrinkles are because they've been putting a lot of toxic products on themselves since they were young. When I was 20, all the coworkers were saying, "Well, what are you doing? You don't have any wrinkles." And I'm thinking, well, I'm not doing anything. I only used Noxema, which is no longer available, so I can use its brand name. But that's what I did. That's all I did. No makeup or anything.
Yes.
And the boss says, "Well, why aren't you wearing makeup?" Why would I wear makeup to work? I'm here to work, not to look beautiful. Anyway, they were all dolled up, and they had their permed hairs. And permed hair. There's another thing, right?
Oh, there's another thing. Yeah.
So there's a lot for women, and then men are facing a lot of these same things. Teens, they have a whole other issue, and really the digital age is very, if I can find a way to get that message across to the teens, I would be so happy. And then
yes,
because they've lived so long, now they're starting to have runny noses when they're cleaning the windows or sneezing, right? Because there's just that buildup of toxins. So you've got to reduce it, change the product so they're not bothering you. And
well, and pet owners.
The pet owners will spend and do all kinds of things for their pets that they would never do for themselves. But I'm hoping that if they do it for their pets, it will help them.
Yes. Oh, well, isn't that? And then you said you want to write a children's book.
Yes, I do.
As well.
Quite figured that out. But, a child looking at the world and being able to determine what's not really good for them would be really wonderful. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but.
Well, I'm confident you will. So to that end, and with all the wisdom that you have to share, may I ask you a few questions off of my board game? Now you're talking.
Yes, I'd love to.
And the reason why I created it was just because the generations need to talk. We need to talk more amongst one another, friends, our friend group, and because these times are challenging, and being able to share things like what you've just talked about and get back to what's really real, which is true connection.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take you back to high school, Theresa. And how does an influence in high school impact your behavior today?
Well, let me tell you, this just takes me back. You know, I was younger. I was the younger one in the class. And I can remember a boy walking up to a girl and saying, well, how do you know if someone's wearing nylons or not? This was in grade 7. And she says, oh, you can see the hair on their legs. Look at Theresa's hair. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I better go home and shave my legs, right? So, high school, you know, there's so many pressures on the teens today in high school, junior high and elementary and daycare even. You know, 2 little girls hold hands and they get accused of being sexually perverse or something. It's like, you know, so much that we need to be able to just let go of so much judgment and fear.
Yes.
Fear about being ourselves.
Yes. And that's why conversation is so key too. And again, across the generations, so there can be some wisdom sharing. But, and isn't that amazing how you can immediately go back to high school in an instant?
Yeah.
Isn't it? And when was the last time that you were confronted with one of life's greatest lies?
Greatest lies. Well, we don't want to get political, but how about the democracy, rule of law story? Just surrounded with lies now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I was thinking something a little bit lighter, like one size fits all.
One size fits all.
Can you share, please, a painful work experience and what you learned about yourself?
Well, this was very painful because as I was getting ill, as we talked about, it was low levels. So as time went on, I was having trouble remembering things. And I had 6 projects, one of which was a $6.2 million construction project for affordable housing.
Why?
And when we would have our staff meetings reporting on what had happened in the week, I had to have a planner for each project that I wrote everything down in because I had no memory. That was very painful. And then the organization was closing down and I stayed and the other people all went and got other jobs and I stayed for the wind down. And I decided to write a memo near the end saying these are the outstanding things because we had an architect who was going to be following up on certain things and they didn't need an admin person. So I wrote this big 2-page memo. I really thought hard about it. I had all these paragraphs and the chair of the board didn't respond. And I bumped into him. I said, I didn't hear from you on my memo. He said, well, actually, I couldn't understand it. And
my goodness.
So I went back and read it and I couldn't understand it.
Oh my goodness. And this was right before you became very ill?
That was after I had gotten ill.
And you had no idea?
Nope. And
wow.
What?
Wow.
I thought, oh, I'll be back to work in 3 months. Oh, I'll be back to work in 6 months. Oh, I'll be back to work in a year. And after 3 years, I realized I just couldn't go back. And, you know, I'm a pretty intelligent person. I come across really well. When we had the clinic where we first went when we were all sick, the term brain fog, and I could rattle off long chemical words about what I was exposed to and everything. And there, you have brain fog? Well, I did have severe brain fog, but then another part of my brain could keep other information intact. Very weird. Yeah. But so I all thought I was an idiot, right? And that does happen a lot with people who are starting to get ill. I know another woman, and I actually called up the board and said, she is not non-functional. She's in a sick building. And they moved her out of that building. And her job continued. And I remember another national broadcaster who was very efficient and effective started stumbling on her words all the time. And it was in a new building. And I said, she's got to get out of that building. They relocated her. And she continued her show at a different location. Yeah.
And was not as affected?
Well, I didn't hear her stumbling on her words anymore. I didn't talk to her. I talked to somebody else in the background. But yeah.
Yeah. As you're talking, we just don't know what we don't know.
Oh, that's so true.
Really.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is increasing awareness for everyone. So when things like this come up, it doesn't debilitate us. It sends us into action.
It's a message, right? Like I should have had a message.
Yes.
I worked a lot of long hours and I worked out of town one day a week and then had a day off. But, I was going downhill, and it was not good for the relationship either. The marriage, it wasn't good. Whatever. I think I might have been snappy. I know I was loud at work, and these were all symptomatic reactions to the I was ingesting.
Wow. That's fascinating. What a turning point for you. Really. This is like no choice.
It just happened.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with a lot of people. Something happens and then it makes them change their life, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That point of adversity. So I'll take another, so describe someone, and I'll just ask you just one or two more questions if you'll describe someone who came into your life for a reason.
Well, in the whole journey to wellness, my neighbor and friend, I hired her and she got sick too. So she was, I was more doing the, finding out what happened and what could be done and trying to get my disability and all that stuff. She was figuring out, well, how do we get well? And she took us on a journey, from drumming to Reiki to crystals. We ran into people who were living in a concrete house or a straw bale house. We did a lot of deep personal work. And I'm trying to remember now. Anyway, I studied with Sandy Levy-Lundeen out at Bellingham. I don't know if you've heard of Sandy.
No, but again, we put that in the show notes.
As of course, I don't know whether it's coming up in a week, called True Women's Power, which was really phenomenal for me. My friend Tina brought us along to all these things, although somebody else brought me to Sandy, and that was in Halifax. And I thought, okay, I'll go to the Art of Personal Marketing. And there was a guest evening, and she talked about that and True Women's Power and Choosing Freedom, which is all about, letting go of the judgments and stuff. And so she's going around the room, and I arrived in a mask. They had scented candles, and I was like this. And nobody had seen anybody in a mask before, so it was quite uncomfortable for people.
Yes.
Anyway, she says, and what would you like to do? What course would you like to do? And I said, well, maybe I would do the Art of Personal Marketing so I know what I'm going to do when I'm better. She says, why don't you get better now? And I'm like, that's not possible. Anyway, I did the 3-day course, and
yes,
which that's another whole story. And then her staff stood there and they said, you have to do these other 2 courses. That were not 2 more 3-day courses, True Women's Power and Choosing Freedom, this weekend.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just going to go home and you're going to go back into the mask and this. And so that weekend, I actually took the mask off, and I only had to wear it twice again, except when I was on the plane. And it just changed my life dramatically. And then
wow. Isn't it?
Spiritual works.
Sandy came into your life for that reason. And well, that's when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it sounded like you were ready.
Definitely.
Yeah, very powerful. So, yes. So, Theresa, words of wisdom that you can share, please, to other parents who may not even know what they don't know, but are seeking answers because their child or they are personally struggling. What are some words of wisdom that you can share?
Well,
for people who might be listening.
If you think there's something wrong, don't let anybody else tell you that there isn't or that you're crazy. That's what people get taught. Oh, you're crazy. Everybody has runny noses. And that was something to one parent when I said that. She said, that's exactly how I feel. Every time I go and talk to the doctor,
Wow.
I feel like they're looking at me like I'm crazy. No, you're not crazy. I think that's the most important thing I can say today.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. So trust your instincts, trust your inner voice. If you know something's wrong, act on it. Yeah, and
act on it. But don't believe that your intuition is wrong. It's not.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. And be your best advocate, which is sometimes very difficult to be your best advocate. If you're feeling like people might be thinking you're crazy, to have that confidence.
And that find other people, that are going through the same struggle. Yes.
Oh, that's great. Well, Theresa, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom. And I'll look forward to watching you as you continue to be out in the world helping people and really increasing people's awareness around all this, because it's new and it's challenging out there.
It's very challenging, yes, and we get so many messages from so many different directions, and if we can just get our feet on the ground on Mother Earth or on the beach and take a deep breath and remember that we're just mammals in a little world.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to survive and be all we can be. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks a lot for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks. Oh, my pleasure. Dan, thank you. Thank you for listening to today's podcast on going from toxic to green with Theresa Thomas. Before you go, pick one small change for your family this week. Maybe you swap a product, open a window, or turn devices off an hour before bed. Little steps make healthier homes. You've been listening to Now You're Talking. Parenting with a busy career while guiding kids through the lure of screens isn't easy, but meaningful connection is always worth it. Take a moment to start a conversation with someone you care about. It could be the highlight of their day. Until next time, let the conversations begin. Now you're talking.
I'm Michelle Abraham, and we are honored to have Adrienne Giffen's Now You're Talking podcast on our High Vibe Podcast Network. For more high vibe shows like hers, head on over to highvibepodcastnetwork.com and grab your free gift from our gift vault from all of our hosts. Until then, stay high vibe.